In today's show, Andy Patton from Locked On College Basketball and Locked On Zags joins the program, and we talk all things Trailblazers and the NBA Draft. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, a very special one, joined by my friend and friend of the program, Andy Patton. You've heard him as the host of Locked On College Basketball right here on this network, and also Locked On Zags. And if you read the internet, he's there too, because he's always doing the work and putting out fantastic college basketball content. Andy, I know you're tired, but thanks for joining the program.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Always love being on Locked On Blazers. This is it's exciting.
Yeah, listen, a one-time often emailer way back in the day, 4 or 5 years ago, a long-time emailer of the podcast, now a cherished guest. We are happy to have you back and talk all things NBA draft. So I want to start with the work you've done, and then we can get into sort of the broader categories. This week, for College Basketball Wire over there on USA Today, you did something brave. You did a 2-round mock. 2 rounds is a lot to mock, Andy. That is a brave thing to do, because that doesn't mean that you can get 30 picks wrong. It means you could get 60 of them wrong. Probably not all 60, but a lot. It is a brave task. I want to talk about what you sort of what you did for the Blazers and where you see them landing and how your mock played out. But are you a fit or best player available guy? Let's get with it. Let's go to the nuts and bolts first.
I was trying to do fit. And first of all, it's a little less brave when I don't have the comments turned on. So I just don't see what anybody is saying. I was like, yeah, I'm going to post this. I'm going to let it be out there. It's going to be in the world. And I'm just going to ignore what anybody says about it. And that helped a lot. I try to do fit as much as I can, because I think it's just like unrealistic and fan bases tend to get really irate if you give them somebody that, is already at a position they have. If I had mocked, Dillingham or Reed Shepherd or even Topic to the Blazers at 7, I've seen what that fan base is saying when you mock a point guard to them in the top 10. So I try to go with fit, obviously, but even teams sometimes, especially in a draft like this where it's a little bit more wide open, they're probably just going best player available. And certain teams, cough, Detroit Pistons, so you just take whoever's there, who's got the highest upside, because you just need somebody to come in who's got some talent. So it kind of varies team by team. But when I try to make a mock, I'm trying to focus on who I think might actually work in that system.
Yeah. I think, I go back and forth. I think I probably lean best player available more than most, but I do recognize, and I think our friend of the program and friend of the network, Rafael Barlow, has helped me kind of come to terms with the idea that if the player doesn't fit, they can't be the best player available, because if you can't play and you can't play your role, then you can't be the best player available. So I think I go back and forth on it a little bit. I'm probably not as hardline as him, but I do agree that either of the Kentucky guards on the Trailblazers doesn't make a lot of sense. Right. And I think that's fair. So let's get into what you've done here. You've gone out on a limb. You got Alex Sarr going first overall. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for being bold. I'm proud of you for being brave. The Wizards go Donovan Clingan at 2. At 3, Rob Dillingham goes to the Rockets. I think that makes a lot of sense. So far, so good. 4, Zachary Rissache to the Spurs. The French connection lands in San Antonio. 5, the Detroit Pistons take Ron Holland. The Detroit Pistons, you are listening to Friday, May 24th show. They have hired a new president of basketball operations, Trajan Langdon, famously lost in the national championship game at the school he attended. And so I think they're a real weird one, right? What do they do? Does he tear it all down? Does he say, none of this stuff is my stuff? Anyone who's not Cade, get out of here? Or does he say, okay, I like what we have, we're going to build? I think they're really curious at 5. 6, the Hornets go with Reed Shepherd, and that puts the Blazers on the clock at 7. Who do you got the Blazers taking at 7 in your mock, Andy?
I got them taking Matas Buzelis from the G League Ignite. I'll be honest, I'm a little skeptical on him, but I think if you're looking at where the Blazers are at this spot, with the players ahead of them who've already gone, I think you want to go with a wing. You want to go with somebody who has some significant upside, and I do think the upside is there with him. I think the floor is kind of low, but unfortunately, this is just not a class where you get a lot of high floor and high upside guys. They just don't really exist really at all in this class, or certainly not outside of the top couple. So that's kind of where I'm going here. I like the idea of him being able to kind of space the floor a little bit. He's kind of a jumbo guard type. I've seen him compared to Mike Dunleavy, which I know is not like a super sexy, exciting comparison.
He's also white and floppy haired. So it's like, oh yeah, he looks like Mike Dunleavy.
It's a little bit of a lazy comparison. We can acknowledge that. I saw somebody said Mike Dunleavy or Gordon Hayward, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's
okay. Come on now. We got to do better with our comps. Every white floppy haired guy can't be Gordon Hayward. If he was bald, he'd be big Steve Blake, jumbo Steve Blake.
You're talking to somebody who is a Gonzaga fan, so every white floppy haired guy usually just gets associated with us in the first place anyway. But no, I like the fit alongside the guards. I think that this is kind of you want to get a bigger wing if you can find him, and if you can find a guy who has the ability to eventually be a long-term starter, or at least a significant role player with the system, with Scoot and Shaden and everybody, I think it makes sense here. But again, it's just not a particularly deep draft outside of the top couple. So, he's a guy that I think you gamble on the upside here.
Yeah, I with both him and Holland, I'm kind of bouncing around on him.
Mm-hmm.
I can talk myself into either one. And then as soon as I do any research on people who've seen, I saw them play once. I went to the remix game against the G League Ignite. Holland had 30, Matza Pazelis got beasted. He was just he was not physically able to hang in that game. Like, he was trying to post up and they were just pushing him right off his block on the post. He did have one end-to-end grabber rebound, push the length of the floor, finish with a swooping layup type of move. And it's like, and he had a putback dunk where he jumped 13 feet in the air, right? Caught the ball at the square and dunked it. It was like, oh, okay. I saw both things. I worry about the physicality for him because if he does fill out and he does get stronger, which is something you can do, like prospects get stronger, that's not unheard of. Then he's 6'10" with some real skills. But if he doesn't get stronger, then he's probably just like a wiry, skinny, small forward. That's it's hard to figure out a spot for him, right? You get he becomes Poku, where it's like, yeah, okay, that's a really interesting. There's a really interesting skinny person, or to some extent, Bol I feel suffers from this, just where it's like, so what position does he play? Because he's not big, he's not strong enough to guard people his height, but he's not fast enough to guard people his weight. And I worry that Pazelis gets caught in that a little bit. But if he can shoot, and he was supposed to be a shooter coming out of high school, he's a really intriguing prospect. I want to ask you about people who are on the board here. So Nikola Topic, you talked about him. You're kind of out on Topic because the lead guard thing. I think is an imperfect fit. But a couple names that I think Blazer fans like that were on the board in your mock when you didn't go that direction are Dalton Connect and Stefan Castle. Why Pazelis over those two specifically?
Yeah, I think with Connect, I really like the floor for Dalton Connect, but I'm not sure that the upside is really there. He's kind of who he is. He's an older prospect, obviously, coming from the junior college ranks and then the Northern Colorado ranks. But obviously, in the SEC last year, he proved very definitively that he can play at that level. He's a big bodied guy. The athletic testing was better than I think a lot of people expected. I still see him as somebody who's going to have a pretty distinct role. I don't think that there's an upside for him to have more offensive versatility, much more offensive versatility. I think he can be a very good 3-point shooter, of course, catch and shoot guy. He can be a shoot off the dribble guy. He can be a backdoor cutter type guy. Maybe this is a Gonzaga bias comparison here, but a bit like Corey Kispert, who's a guy who was a very good 2-point shooter last year and doesn't get a lot of credit for that. Obviously, he's buried on a team that nobody's watching in Washington, so that's not helping. But I just think that for Connect, if I'm Portland and you're in the situation that you're in with the roster and the amount of picks they have coming up and the lack of competition for the next year or two, I would rather gamble on a younger prospect who's got more upside. I think there is absolutely a reality where Connect is a better NBA player, but the floor is higher, but the ceiling is lower. And so I think for Portland, I'm taking upside swings, and I think that Pazelis offers more of that high upside. Again, like you said, if he puts the weight on, if he kind of develops into the player that we think he's capable of being, I think that's a better player than Dalton Connect and perhaps a better fit alongside Scoot and Shaden. Whereas Connect, I had him go into Memphis, a team that's in the lottery that I think is trying to win sooner. And I think it makes a little bit more sense to add somebody who can help right away. And with Castle, the main thing that kind of worries me for Portland is he is adamant that he wants to be a point guard.
He's a point guard, yeah.
He is dead set. I want to be a point guard. I'm going to play point guard. I think that there's a possibility that he's capable of doing that, but I'm not sure I'm willing to draft somebody who is like publicly stated they want to be a point guard on a team that has point guards. Like, I just don't know if there's you run the risk of there being some potential issues that you have if you're not playing him at point guard, you're playing him at a spot he doesn't want to be. That could cause problems. Having said that, love Stephon Castle, love his game, love his upside. Think he can be a really, really good NBA player. Just not sure he fits in Portland because of what he wants.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? He was like a 5-star point guardy type kid who came out, goes to UConn, perfectly fits in a role as an off-ball wing where he's incredibly good and helps them just dominate college basketball, right? And it was really good in the Final Four against Alabama. He was fine in the national championship game. Like, he's really good. Like, he's good, and he played an off-ball role, and he's good. And then he's like, okay, I've checked that box. I've proven I can be a winner as an off-ball wing. I would now like to be a point guard. I'm hoping this is stuff from his agent. I'm hoping this is agent and camp stuff, and that when he actually gets on a team, he's like, yeah, I don't really care about that. But I don't think that's a risk. I feel like that's a real thing. It's like, if a guy, this is like, if he views himself a certain way, it's hard to, you don't want to just be trying to fit that square peg in a round hole from day one. You'd kind of rather have it be a smoother fit. And because the Blazers have a great deal of franchise investment in a young point guard, not to mention Anthony Simons, not to mention Malcolm Brogdon, but just, you draft Scoot at 3 overall last year as a teen. You kind of owe it to yourself to see it forward to say, like, his 22nd birthday. So yeah, I'm with you on Castle. Let's talk what you did at 14 and kind of some other thoughts on the late lottery. That's what we'll do to close, or to in the second segment, rather. I'm getting ahead of myself. Join us in that second segment, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn. It's the spot if you are a small business to hire professionals, because you need professionals that are right for your role. So check out LinkedIn Jobs, because they've got the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn is LinkedIn. It's the power of the online resume tool, online professional tool we're all already using. It's got a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you've got that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So join the already 2.5 million small businesses using LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, still chatting here with Andy Patton, host of Locked On College Basketball and Locked On Zags. Let's talk what you did at 14. We're talking Andy's mock draft. It's available over on collegesportswire.usatoday.com. I will link it below in the comment section, or in the episode description if you are watching on YouTube, or it's in the episode description if you are an audio listener as well, so you can check it out. So at 7, Buzelis goes to the Blazers. 8, Nikola Topic goes to the Spurs. I like that the Spurs go international flavor in your mock. They got Reece Shea and then Topic. At 9, Dalton Connect to the Grizzlies, as you mentioned. I like that pick for him. I think they want to be bigger, but they could use shooting. They could always use shooting. 10, Stephon Castle goes to the Jazz. I like that too. That would make sense. He could play point guard for them. He could, I guess they've somewhat invested with Keontae George, but maybe you could play him together. He could have a lot of on-ball opportunities there. 11, the Chicago Bulls. They take the big swing on Tijan Salon out of Cholet in France. 12, the Thunder get Kyle Filipowski. They're legally obligated to get Chet 2.0 without the defense or the actual shooting. 13, Eva Misi from Baylor goes to the Kings, and then 14, the Blazers on the clock. What'd you do at 14 for the Blazers?
Well, I'm really glad I didn't give Filipowski to the Blazers, Mike, because I'm not sure you'd have had me on the show.
I would have, but it would have had a different tone. We would have had a different
would have been a
tone.
little bit of angst there. Now,
Yeah, exactly.
14, I went with Cody Williams, small forward from Colorado. Again, another kind of upside swing on a wing for the Blazers. I think part of the argument is like, well, one of these two guys is going to work out, right? So you get a wing of the future between one of these two. I really like the upside with Cody Williams, and I think there's definitely concerns that I think the supporters of Cody Williams will point out that he had the injury last year, and that may have kind of impacted how he performed, especially down the stretch where he just flat out wasn't all that good and was not playing very much. And Colorado was relying on KJ Simpson and Tristan Da Silva, who are also both NBA prospects who are probably both going to be selected. So it's not like, they were pushing Cody Williams aside for just average Joes. They were good players for Colorado. But with Williams, I think a lot of it is just maturation stuff that needs to happen, just basketball IQ things. Some of it's maybe innate, but some of it I think he just will grow into finding like decision making and being more aggressive. He was a really highly efficient scorer at Colorado, and that's what that pops off the page when you look at the stats. And for people who are just kind of casually like, wow, he shot 40+% from three, he shot 50+% from two, like he was really efficient. He didn't take a lot of shots, and he took a lot of really
41 threes in college. Like
exactly.
He took like a little over one a game. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's not a volume guy, and I think he needs to find a way to get to the star potential. He needs to find a way to be more assertive and more aggressive and hunt his own shot, because the skill is there. There's also, he's skinny, a little bit like Buzelis in that way, needs to kind of put on a little bit of weight. I do think that the family matters. I think the fact that he's Jalen Williams' brother does matter, because I think that he's, in terms of him kind of maturing and learning the game and kind of processing the speed of the NBA, it's going to help to have a family member who has gone through it and is doing it at an extraordinarily high level with the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think Cody Williams, I mean, that potential is probably not there, and maybe it is. Maybe that's the high end outcome, is that he becomes his brother. But he's a guy who is strong and can get stronger and has proven he can shoot and has a lot of athletic ability. And I think in the right system, a team that's willing to be patient with him, that's willing to kind of have him come along with the other younger guys, like I can see a reality where Scoot and Shaedon and Cody Williams is a really, really dynamic kind of backcourt wing trio. It's just, they're just going to all kind of have to get used to each other. And I think Williams, he's really young. And I think that's going to come with age and maturity. And we've seen him kind of fall on draft boards because of that weak finish to the season, but I wouldn't really hold that against him. He was injured. He's young. I think there's a lot of upside here.
Yeah. So I didn't see a full game of him prior to the injuries. I watched parts of a couple games early in the season, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to lock in on draft stuff now. And then he was like coming back from injury, and I was really underwhelmed. I was like, okay. I mean, I did like KJ Simpson a lot. I thought he was good. That's like when I watched Colorado, I was like, the point guard's good. I like him. It's just, I was like, for me, I worry that playing hard is a skill, and it's a skill that he will have to sharpen. But maybe you can, in the right system, or if just like when you're given the keys in a way, like when you're given, like when they say, okay, we really need you to shoot, like you're on the court to shoot. I just worry. Like I remember covering Alan Crabb and the Portland Trailblazers, and the coaching staff was begging him to be more aggressive. Now, Alan Crabb turned not being particularly aggressive into $75 million. So it can work out for you in a variety of ways. But like, I worry that that's a thing that maybe sticks with some guys, right? If they don't have it. And I worry a little bit with him. The weight thing, like he measured real skinny. He weighed like under 180 pounds at his size. He's like, 6'8", but 175 pounds. That's a skinny person, but like he's young, and you'll just feel your frame will get bigger. And if you draft someone who is a one and done teenager, you kind of know that you are dealing with someone who's going to physically mature, right? Like that's part of the calculation. That's why I said you got to wait till maybe Scoot's 22nd birthday to really make some judgments, because like there's just like some stuff that goes along. Scoot, I guess, is like pretty physically mature. He's built like a linebacker, but I worry a little bit with Cody Williams. Like I don't love him. I think at 14, totally fine. At 7, I wouldn't be super excited about it. At 14, like where you have him going in your mock, I'm like, Yeah, great. Like there's no one behind him. Like the immediate picks right behind him in your mock are Devin Carter, who I like but doesn't really fit with the Blazers. Tristan Da Silva, Cody's teammates.
Mhm.
Isaiah Collier again doesn't fit. Baylor Shireman, who was a darling of the NBA draft games, 5-on-5, played the best of the NBA draft combine games, played really well in the 5-on-5 of the combine. And then like Jared McCain, who it's like I bet Jared McCain's an NBA player, but he's just not big enough to be intriguing for what I view the Blazers' next steps are. So basically, you're getting to a range at 14 where if this was the board as you have it play out, I think Cody Williams is the best pick on the board for me. But before we get into your second round picks, what do you do with Zach Edey? You're someone who covers college basketball for a living. What do you do with him? Like he's hyper productive. He's gonna have a physical advantage in the NBA most nights just because he's already bigger than everyone else, so damn strong, and he's in great shape. But what do you do with him? Like how do you have him going 23rd? How do you view him in this draft?
Yeah, Zach Edey is such an unbelievable anomaly, and it's so funny to see the way people talk about him, and they just try to lump him in of like, well, he's going to be like Boban, or he's going to be like so and so because he's
Yao Ming. He's either Yao Ming or Boban,
right? And it's like he's so different than everybody. Like Jonathan Givony at Draft Express, he has like a database of it's like 7,500 former college basketball players and like their measurements. And he put Zach Edey in there and it was like, it didn't know what to do. It was like Shaq, but it was like, oh, that's not right. He's not Shaq, but like they couldn't figure out what to do with somebody who's his height and his weight and his athletic testing. He's a complete anomaly. And I think for Zach Edey, there's just no doubt in my mind that he can contribute at the NBA level. Yes, his ceiling is capped, and that's what everybody likes to focus on. And it's like we're talking about a player. He's probably not going to go in the lottery. Maybe some team will take him, but if we're talking
right on
about
the edge, I would bet though. Yeah.
If we're talking about a guy who's a mid first round pick in this class, and people are focusing on like, oh, his ceiling is capped. It's like, let's talk about his floor, because most of the guys around him, you mentioned Jared McCain and guys like Jacoby Walker and other players who are in this conversation, like they have really low floors. Zach Edey's is higher than all of them because at the end of the day, he's going to be able to score. I mean, there's just no debate that, yes, you're not going to funnel your offense through him. And I think that's what is part of the conversation is like, Zach Edey's not going to go in the NBA and have the team just pass him the ball the whole time. And it's like, yeah, but he can still score off offensive rebounds. If he gets mismatches, you can get him the basketball and he can score. He's got touch with both hands. Like he's drop coverage. You got to play that with him on the floor. And that probably caps him at not being able to play 35 minutes a game. But I have him going 23 to Milwaukee as just a backup big for Brook Lopez. He's getting older. Like you just need somebody to be able to come in and contribute. Maybe Brook Lopez can help him learn how to space the floor a little bit. I think when you talk about bigs, people really like to focus on free throw percentage as an indication of maybe their ability to space the floor. Zach Edey's a good free throw shooter. He's a better free throw shooter.
Yeah, he turned into a very good free.
Yeah,
turned into a very good free throw shooter. Yeah,
better than Klingon, better than Missy, better than Dembona, better than like basically all the other bigs that are in this class. And I don't think he's going to be like a 3-point shooter necessarily, but if he can just step out and hit 15 footers on the baseline and kind of move defenders away, like that's really valuable. And I think about him on like a Milwaukee team of being able to step out, give Giannis some room to operate, give Dame some room to operate. It makes some sense to me. So I think he's going to have a more productive career than a lot of people think that he will, because I think there's a lot of kind of blind bias against, we've been so conditioned to be like big back to the basket bigs are
bad.
Out. Yeah. They're bad now. And it's like, well, he's an exception.
Yeah, I worry about his defense capping what he can be, because how long can he play on the floor? I think his ceiling is it might be like really intriguing situational big guy, but also his floor might be really intriguing situational big guy. And then so if you're drafting with the understanding that, oh, this dude's probably not gonna be a star in the pros, but he is going to be like really useful to mash second units, because who on earth is going to have someone who can guard him? And he's only going to play he's going to play 16 minutes a night, 2 8-minute stretches. And you could just say like, set huge screens and make your right-handed jump hook that you're so good at. I think there's a world for him. If you want him to not be that, if you need him to be more than that, I think there's room for disappointment. But where you have him at 23, I think is very reasonable. If he goes at like 8, then I'm going to be, but I would say like Edey probably has a higher floor than either of the two gentlemen, Buzelis and Cody Williams, that you that you have mocked, 10 and 15 spots ahead of him. And yet I would take them in a heartbeat over him because I'm aiming higher if I'm the Blazers.
Mhm.
Okay. I want to talk about some second round prospects and some guys who worked out for the Trailblazers on Thursday. Join us. Andy will come too in the third segment. We'll talk all about it. First, though, I want to tell you about eBay Motors. eBay Motors knows that there's three things: passion, drive, and patience. That's what gets the job done. That's what brings home championships. And that's what keeps your car on the road. So with over 120 million parts to choose from for your number one ride or die, you're always going to find what you're looking for with eBay Motors. Whether you're looking for superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, it's all there. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to make your car an MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right. Still chatting here with Andy Patton. Those are Locked On College Basketball, Locked On Gonzaga. I usually say pass first point guard. Still Mike Richards, still pass first point guard, still listen to Locked On Blazers. But I was clicking too many buttons, so I screwed up the intro. But we're back, baby. Third segment. Let's talk some second round stuff. Okay, the Blazers held their first draft workout today. It was mostly second round undrafted types. But the two names that are like highest up on the most commonly on big boards are Jalen Tyson of Cal, who worked out for the Blazers, and Adembona from UCLA. Let's talk about both of them. They were in the building. With pre-draft workouts, just as like a real quick caveat, it's easier to get second rounders in the building, which is why the Blazers will hold more workouts with second rounders. Nobody's agent with a guy who's going to go 55th is like, no, I will not be sending him to Portland. If someone's going to go like, if their range is like middle of the second round, those dudes are going to 16 workouts. They're flying everywhere. So who knows how many lottery types the Blazers get in? I assume they will get some. I would estimate in the 4 to 10 range of lottery types, but they're going to get a lot of second rounders. And the biggest names on the grouping today were Adembona and Jalen Tyson. Let's start with Tyson. He's a wing from Cal. What do you like about him? You have him 28th in your mock. What do you like about him?
Yeah, he's a guy who really popped in a situation where he had the ball in his hands a lot at Cal. He'd previously been at Texas Tech, and he'd been a decent player at different programs. But when he got to Cal and Coach Mark Madsen said, okay, you're our guy. We're putting the ball in your hands. We're letting you go to work. They had a lot of role players around him that were kind of like low usage players, like Daz Amax, a big man who didn't need the ball in his hands a lot. Their other guards were kind of catch and shoot specialists. So I think for Tyson, he was in a situation at Cal that really allowed him to put up eye-popping numbers. And I do think that is an important distinction, because that's not the role he's going to have in the NBA. And obviously, I mean, this is like scouting 101, is like you have to be able to evaluate a player if what role they're in college and whether that role would be. I mean, that's what we talked about with Stephon Castle, and like you have to be able to see whether that role translates. But with Tyson, I do think that it does. I do think that the fact that he was productive at Texas Tech in a situation where he wasn't as ball dominant and kind of go-to scoring option does allow him to be somebody who could be more of an off-ball player. I think he could be a catch and shoot specialist. I think he could be kind of like a high energy sixth man microwave type scorer. I could see that being the role for him in the NBA. I mocked him to Denver because Denver just collects like older wing college prospects. They're just like,
you are 21 to 22. Exactly. They love that. They love
those guys. And it's worked for him. I mean, Christian Brown's been fantastic. I mean, I think it's clearly Denver. Peyton Watson's been great. Like, it's clearly working for them. So Tyson kind of strikes me in that mix. I don't know, like for Portland, if he's available at one of their second round picks, I think he totally makes some sense. He's a talented player. He's not exactly the fit for them just because he's an older prospect, and he is a guard, but he's a bigger guard. He'd probably play some 2-3 for Portland. But he's a talented player that I think is going to carve out a nice NBA career. Kind of a floor guy, not really a ceiling guy, but a quality player.
Yeah, measured 6'5.5" at the combine without shoes. So I think that's small forward-ish size. Yeah, depending on the physicality. Yeah. I honestly never seen him play a minute, but I know
you watched a lot of Cal basketball last year. Hey, they're going to be in the ACC next year.
I'm good. Listen, once Carolina starts coming to the West Coast with regularity, they're not traveling next year to the West Coast, but once they start coming to regularity, I'm not only going to be watching Cal basketball, I'm going to be attending games at Berkeley every year. I'm going to go see my beloved
Save
Tar
your
Heels.
seat, I'm in. That sounds fun.
Yeah. Oh, let's do it. Let's go to Berkeley. Let's go to the Farm and see him play Stanford. I'm all in. I'm ready. I do hate it with all my heart, but I'll if they get closer, I'm going to watch them. I'm not stupid. I'll buy the plane ticket, whatever. Speaking of West Coast games and teams relocating, Dembona of a Big Ten, pride of the Big Ten at UCLA. You have him at the end of the first round. What is he going to bring in the NBA? What's his upside?
Well, I'm going to shamelessly promote that I wrote an article today about Dembona specifically. So if you read the mock draft, you can click on my name and go find the article on Dembona specifically. I really like it. I really like his game. I like it a lot. He's a big who's not going to space the floor. He was a sub 70% free throw shooter last year. He's a sub 60% free throw shooter as a freshman. So that's probably not an area. I think if you watch his jump shot and you saw clips at the combine, he looks like a capable jump shooter. So maybe it develops down the line, but you're not taking him for that. You're taking him for the fact that he has a 7'4" wingspan, that he has a vertical leap of 40 inches, that he's got a standing reach of 9 feet tall, and that despite being 6'9" without shoes on, he is going to be able to be an impactful rim protector and low post defender and rim runner offensively. He's a really good athlete in the open floor. It's kind of shocking watching him get up and down the floor. This dude can move. He's got quickness, he's short burst speed, athleticism. The actual basketball skill is still coming around. He's young. UCLA was absolutely terrible last year, and I think it really didn't do him any favors that the collective team just couldn't score the basketball at all. They were a really atrocious watch. So I think that hurt him a little bit, but that's why the testing kind of opened a lot of people's eyes to oh, this dude can really play and he can really move. I've seen him comped to Time Lord a little bit, to Robert Williams. I think that's a high-end comp for him, but I wouldn't be shocked if he was kind of a mini version of him, just with that he's an undersized big who's really athletic and uses that in a positive way. I mocked him to Boston, but I honestly, if he's available, if this mock had continued without him and he was available at 34, I would have hit him for Portland immediately, because I think he's a quality fit as a backup big, and there's a lot of teams that could use a guy like him with his energy.
Yeah, if he's there at 34 or especially 40, if he's at 40, I think he's really worth taking a flyer on. The Blazers don't have roster spots necessarily for 2 second rounders.
Yeah.
But they do have 2-way contracts available for them, most likely, unless you really think they're pot committed to Ashton Higgins, which I'm going to say that they're probably not a lot of deep organizational commitment to Ashton Higgins and Justin Minaya. So I think they have 2 and potentially 3, depending on what they want to do with Ibubaji, 2-way contracts for him. And if Bona would be cool with that, if he gets into the, it's a weird spot. 34 is a weird spot. It's so close to the first round that maybe guys are oh, I don't want a 2-way deal. Please don't draft me, if they're not going to get that. But obviously you can't always make your own decisions. Yeah, my worry with him was that he measured 6'8" with his socks on at the combine. But when I've watched him, I have seen some UCLA games because they were on television despite being terrible early in the season, particularly. He pops as bigger than that. I was stunned when I looked up his combine measurements today when I saw he worked out for the Blazers, and I was like, he's not even 6'8.5. He's a not quite 6'10" with his shoes on. I'm surprised to hear that because he feels much bigger when he plays. I like him in those spots. Okay, real quick before I get you out of here because we're running long and I respect the format. We're not going to drag people on too long. At 34, you had the Blazers taking De'Ron Holmes of Dayton. I really like De'Ron Holmes. I like him. I've even said the Blazers could consider him at 14, which is probably insane, but I like him. I watched him play a couple games in the tournament and right around the tournament, and I was like, yeah. I'm all in. I'm all in, and I like Blazers have done well with Dayton Flyers. What's your De'Ron Holmes read quickly?
Yeah, basically that. I think the range between 14 and 40 in this draft is really close. So yeah, Holmes would shock some people at 14, but I don't think there's a big talent discrepancy in a lot of ways. It's about fit. And Holmes, 20 points per game last year for Dayton. He's athletic. He's got some floor spacing ability. He's a menace around the rim. I think he can develop into a very good defensive player. I really like De'Ron Holmes, and if he was around at 34, there's very unlikely the Blazers would find a better option than him.
Yeah, this was when I was reading your mock, I was like, Nice. I was like, oh, okay, good. I love Toronto's. Nice. I
There
love
you
34.
go.
I love their pick at 34. At 40, the most Andy Patton pick you could possibly make, Hunter Salas of Wake. Where did he go before he went to Wake, Andy?
I wonder. I can't remember. Yeah, Hunter Salas, former Zag. Yeah, got to throw the former Zags out there every once in a while. But look, Hunter Salas is good.
He is. He was very good. Once he got to Wake, he was very good.
Yeah, this is he did not do much at Gonzaga. He was behind some other guards. He got in foul trouble pretty much every time he came in the game. He was a little working on his defense, a little too aggressive in that regard. He goes to Wake Forest. Steve Forbes over at Wake Forest somehow is a guard whisperer. Every time they get a transfer guard, they become all ACC. It's happened. It's literally happened like 3 years in a row. Tyree Appleby, Jake LaRavia, who's with Memphis now Hunter Salas. Like literally,
yeah, Alondas Williams too.
Yeah. Like I would automatically transfer to Wake Forest if you're a guard who didn't get enough playing time. Like just go there. It works magically. And it was partly because they put him in an on-ball role and just let him do whatever he wanted. But what he wanted to do was shoot. And he was a 26% three-point shooter at Gonzaga, and he was over 40 at Wake Forest. That kind of development was fantastic. I'm not sure if Hunter Salas is going to, he still has the option to return to school. I wouldn't. If I was him, I think he should stay in the draft process. I think he's better suited if he's going to be a second-round pick. Portland obviously doesn't need guards. They're not going to keep all these roster spots. But if you could get him on a two-way contract, he would tear it up for the Rip City Remix, folks. He would be amazing to watch for that team.
Yeah, I like him at 40. I don't know what to do with the second round picks, right? Like you got to assume they're not going to play in the immediate term, right? Because the Blazers already have 6 guys who are going to be second and third year players on the team next year, much less 2 lottery picks, much less, the veterans and young veterans. And even if they trade some of the veterans, they're going to bring players back. Like this, I don't think anyone who gets drafted in the second round, you should pencil in them likely to play, right? At least early in the season, likely to play. So it's like, you can take Hunter Salas because if you like the upside, because you're not worried about the 2024 Blazers. You were worried about maybe when the calendar flips and beyond. And I think he has some upside there. I don't have the allegiance that you do towards him. I don't have the strong allegiance. I know that Wake was tough this year. Like I know he was good and Wake was tough this year. So I like him, and he was obviously really, really productive in the ACC, one of the most underrated conferences in the country, obviously. But yeah, I think with these picks in the second round, it's like you just try to hit guys that you could develop on a two-way contract and could be something in the future, and that like if things break right, you convert them to full-time contracts. I don't think you worry about with this stuff. I think it's all best player available. I think there's no fit considerations in the second round for me.
Yeah, no, there's some point guards that it's like, oh, I'm sure the Blazers fans would love to see KJ Simpson, for example, or Jamal Shad, because they're undersized like pure point guards, but like those guys are good. And if they're around, grab them and see what they do. If nothing else, they're going to push your guards in practice. Like there's nothing wrong with using those picks for those kind of guys, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think once you get deeper, particularly 40, it's just like whoever's the highest on your board, take them, bring them into your system, and see what you can do. Because it's so hard to get picks in the top 10, right? Much less picks in the top 40. So like, throw darts. The Blues have been historically over the last 10 years very good at drafting players in the second round. So hopefully, for the sake of the franchise, they continue that trend. Andy, if people are looking for more of you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Andy Patton CBB. If you want to be on Twitter, that's where I'm going to be. Obviously, Locked On Zags, Locked On College Basketball. You can find those 2 shows wherever you find Locked On Blazers. You can also find the written content at collegesportswire.usatoday.com.
Cool. Andy's always doing work. He's covering college basketball year round from a whole bunch of different angles. He's the best. Go read his stuff, listen to his podcast, and listen. Zags don't have a football team, so he's got basketball talk and recruiting talk year round. Yeah. My man is on the hardwood doing work. Check out his stuff. Appreciate you, Andy. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, Mike. Thanks for having me on. Always.
Dear listeners, come back for next week. 5 more shows wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. It's freaking May. You're not getting this type of Blazer content anywhere else. So do me a favor. Tell your friends about the program. You can like and subscribe and leave reviews. I don't care about that. I want you to go and tell a friend. If you were listening to this program, you were at the 40-minute mark of a show in May about the Portland Trailblazers. Go tell a friend. Say, I like the Trailblazers and you do too. Go listen to Locked On Blazers. It's available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.